All right, man. So let's jump into a little college football. Let's start. You want to start at the top of the AP rankings?
Let's
It was
do it.
pretty good game for the number one team in the country.
Wasn't it?
Almost got knocked off, man.
Yeah.
Alabama, Florida. Alabama pulls out the 2-point win over Florida down in the swamp. Started out got gangbusters. They're up 21-3 after the first quarter. Bryce Young appears to be the real deal, man, after 3 games now. But then that defense is starting to show some chinks in the armor potentially. I tell you what, they can get run on. If you got a good run offense, which I'm not saying Notre Dame does at the moment, but if you've got a good run offense, that might be the way to keep Bryce Young on the sideline, churn out some yards, get some points, and maybe Alabama isn't, they're the number one team in the country. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they're not perfect. That's for sure.
There's one thing that stands out. When you look at the defense for Georgia, let's say, or the dominant defenses we've seen at Clemson, or their defense this year, the one thing that's missing for Alabama that they've always had on their dominant defenses is that one dude right there in the middle of that defensive line.
Yeah.
That's going to mess up everything, whether it's the run play or pass play. They're going to disrupt. They're going to push your guards and centers back into the backfield. They don't have that. Mm-hmm. And I was really amazed the way that Florida was able to reset, come out. They're down. I'm thinking Dan Mullen is going to open it up a little bit more.
Right.
Dan Mullen says, look, we're about to run right at them and establish that we're the more physical team and we're the better team.
Right.
And they did it all second half. If they don't make the mistakes they made, the 2 interceptions and some other things, the penalties early in the game, they very well could have won that game by about 10 points.
Right.
Because they were definitely the more physical team. And you came away from that game saying, if they play on a neutral field and say in the SEC championship game, Florida will have a pretty good chance.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
A pretty good chance.
Yeah.
So up the middle, especially at the linebacker position, I don't think they have the linebackers they've had the last 2 years as well. They lose that guy that's, wrecking havoc now in the NFL for Bill Belichick. He's no longer there in the middle, and they miss him. So Alabama, we dare say they're in a transitional year on the defense?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. You could say that. And I'll tell you what, so when we did our prediction show for the season, I'm pretty sure I said Florida was going to win the East over whoever else was in there. But Florida, I think, is a better team than I even thought that they would be. And I give Dan Mullen a lot of credit because, last year they're throwing the ball all over the yard. They're doing all this, and this year they're pounding the rock. I mean, they have changed their identity twofold. I mean, they've completely done a 180 with their identity, and that's coaching. Like, that doesn't just happen, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see what Florida does from here on out. I think that they're a pretty solid team, and I think they're going to give people a lot of trouble moving forward.
Yeah, they had a Heisman Award winning contending quarterback, and then they had quite possibly the best pass catching weapon in all of college football that's in the NFL. So you lose that.
Absolutely.
And Tony's in the NFL as well. Another weapon they had, like you said, coaching, man. He's able. This is the same guy that was at Mississippi State.
Right.
And had Dak Prescott and turned that program, that offense, into an explosive offense and to a top 5 program at one time while he was there. So he can coach.
Right.
He can coach. Now it's just a matter. I think that's one of those games where you have to play Bama and realize, we can beat them. I think when they played them in the SEC championship game, they knew that they could hang with them, but I think they knew Bama was the better team.
Sure.
Saturday, I think the Gators walked out of the swamp saying, we see them, we're going to beat them next time.
Well, and they didn't even they've got that 2 quarterback system going too down in Florida with their dynamic second string guy, a la Notre Dame, right? And they didn't even play him in this game.
Hamstring for him too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
These backups with these hamstrings.
I'm telling you. So they also said that he would have been available if there was an emergency situation, et cetera. So, I'm just saying that was an unused weapon for Florida that they could come back with in that SEC championship game if that ends up being the case. And that'd be a fun one to watch. Let me tell you.
I can't wait for the cocktail party. Now, that Georgia-Florida game is going to be really good.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point because that you're going to get smash mouth Florida against that defense from Georgia. And that defense is legit for Georgia. That defense is legit. And I think JT Daniels is starting to figure out that offense a little bit more. Now, might as well just start talking about Georgia, right? I don't know how good South Carolina is. Obviously, they were 2-1, but they scored 13 points. I have a feeling that was more because of Georgia's defense than it, and then the offense is scoring 40. Yeah. And and they didn't score in the fourth quarter. So they clearly took their foot off the gas as well. So this Georgia team is going to be something to reckon with as well, for sure. Yeah,
Georgia wasn't going to allow any of that Beamer ball to impact them this week. They got right at it early on both sides of the ball. Big plays. They established the run and the pass. And like you said, their front seven, Vince, I have to go back. I've never seen a defense that big and that fast.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of fast defenses that had long-rangey players. But I've never seen a front that big and that fast. When you have 330 and 350-pound defensive tackles chasing down quarterbacks to the sideline, that's a scary proposition for any offensive coordinator in the SEC this year.
No doubt, because you can't spread them out this way.
No.
And they got corners where you're not going to be able to spread them out that way.
Right. So any quarterback, the pocket is collapsing.
Absolutely.
In 1.5 seconds. So I don't know what you do with that unless you have guys like Florida that can make plays with their legs.
Absolutely. Yep.
That might be, the weapon that ends up being the difference.
Sure. And with a team like that, I mean, you're darned if you do, darned if you don't in a lot of ways against this Georgia defense. But if I've got a running game like I think Florida has, and I'm going right at them, you just got to go right at them because if you try to get cute and you try to get fancy, they're going to run you down and they're going to make you look silly. So I think you just take it right to them, man, and see what happens. Try death by 1,000 punches, right? I mean, that's what you got to do.
And I think the speed of Alabama's offense had the Florida defense on their heels, but kudos to their defense. They ratchet down in the second half as well, held out Alabama in check, and allowed their team to get back in the game. Because like you said, they didn't get back in the game with big plays through the air.
Right.
They took their time and methodically got back in the game. So when you methodically get back in the game, your defense has to get stops.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little Oklahoma. They played Nebraska this week, 23-16. Scott Frost really trying to hold on to his job. I don't know if it says more about Nebraska or Oklahoma that this thing was as close as it was. Your thoughts on this one?
I wasn't impressed with Oklahoma.
No, me neither.
I just really wasn't. I thought Nebraska played very well, especially along the line of scrimmage. I think their defensive line is overlooked because of that surprising loss to Illinois opening week. But their defensive line is really good, especially against the run. They really don't have that speed rusher to get to the quarterback. But as a group, they work together really well. And I like the way they set the line of scrimmage on the other side, for their linebackers and the safeties. Oklahoma, I just expect more from Spencer Rattler.
Absolutely.
Like the hype, and you saw the history, the history of Lincoln Riley and all of his quarterbacks. They come to him whether they were recruited or they transfer, and they get better in his offense. I'm not seeing it with Spencer Rattler right now. Mims, he wasn't really getting loose like I thought he would against that Nebraska secondary. And no, I'm just not impressed. I really am not impressed. Nebraska's offense, like I said, it's one-sided. Only thing they can do is really run the ball. Martinez isn't a threat in the passing game.
No.
And they were still able to move the ball quite well in the first half. Like Nebraska had opportunities to put points on the board early in this game. They just didn't come up with that big play or that third.
A lot of field goals.
Yeah, a lot of field goals. So I wasn't impressed with Oklahoma at all. And I think they should have taken a drop in the polls, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, so they're 3-0, so they're gonna stay right where they're at, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, that's when you're up that high and you keep winning, you're not gonna drop, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes, unfortunately. So I mean, again, I don't know if anybody in the Big 12 is gonna get to them. We'll see, but I think they're good enough where I feel like they're gonna get through the Big 12. But I think if they happen to make it into the Final Four, I think they're going to get exposed. I really do. But that would be a typical Oklahoma situation in the Final Four. So,
Well, just from a tradition standpoint, I think every team has that one game on their schedule where they know that they're better than that team.
Right.
The game somehow, some way always ends up being a tough physical game and going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
For Oklahoma, it's always that Red River shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Like some years, they're like a 20-point favorite, and they go in there and Texas gets them somehow, some way. Turnovers, special teams, big plays, what have you. Kansas State has always been a thorn in the side of Oklahoma for some reason. And then Bedlam.
Right.
So
absolutely.
I think those are the only 3 games what I would worry about Oklahoma not winning, just because of the tradition of those games.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So I don't think that there's much of a point in talking about Oregon. They played Stony Brook, and then Iowa played Kent State. Both were pretty much blowouts. So let's go to the number 6 team in the country, the Clemson Tigers. And they had to have a goal line stand against Georgia Tech, who is now 1-2 on the season, to defeat the Yellow Jackets in Clemson, right? Yeah. It was a home game for Clemson, and they had to have a goal line stand to beat Georgia Tech. I think as I'm looking at the chat here, everybody, agrees Clemson is just not a great football team this year, and they've already got one loss, and they're still this number 6 team in the country, which is.
But they're wasting a great defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're wasting it. They have a really good defense, especially up front. That defensive line is really good.
Yeah. Oh, the defense won them that game. Yeah. There is no 2 ways about it. The defense won them that game. They held Georgia Tech to 8 points. And that goal line stand was unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Georgia Tech threw everything they had at them to try to get those last few yards, and they couldn't do it. So, there better be some love for that defense down there, at Clemson.
And you think when you know how it is, when you recruit or you coach, you get a young guy in, you see the promise, you project their ceiling, and then you come back the next season and it just doesn't go the way you thought it would. We saw the performance of DJ Uiagalelei at Notre Dame Stadium. And we thought he's the next one in the line of these great Clemson quarterbacks. And it just hasn't manifested itself that way. It just hasn't. He looks unsettled in the pocket.
Yeah.
We do know that offensive line is look, Notre Dame isn't the only big program with problems along the offensive line.
Fair.
Like that makes me feel good. Like, oh, they struggle with the offensive line too. But and Tony Elliott is a great play caller. But when you don't have an offensive line and it's unsettled, you have a quarterback who's unsettled, and then you have all this talent outside, because they definitely have talent at the skill positions, but everything has to work together.
Absolutely.
And right now, they're out of sync as an offense, and we're gonna see what Dabo and Tony Elliott can come up with, because I don't think they survive the ACC schedule, putting up,
which is scary to think about.
Yeah, they're not going to put up at least 20 with that defense. If they put up 21 points, Vince, they'll win every game.
Exactly, and that honestly, that's how I feel about Notre Dame's defense. If if Notre Dame can score 3 or 4 touchdowns or 21, 25 points, they're going to have a great shot to win every game the way the defense is playing. Same thing with Clemson. But the problem is, they only scored 14.
Yeah.
And Will Shipley, the one that got away for Notre Dame, ends up with 21 carries, 88 yards, and both touchdowns for Clemson. Right. One in the first and one in the fourth. So, that kid is obviously the real deal. He's a great player. But still, he only had 88 yards. And so is the Georgia Tech defense that good, or is the Clemson offensive line that poor? I think I'm leaning more towards the Clemson side of things.
Yeah.
Especially when DJ Uiagalelei only has 126 yards on 18 completions. I mean, that's wow. I mean, he's either not getting enough time, or they're just dinking and dunking the whole time because he averaged 5 yards a pass. I mean, it's not good. It's not good at all.
We talked about the game plan going into every game for Tommy Rees and how important Michael Mayer is to the other side, knowing, hey, we have to stop this guy. And I wonder just how much we know Trevor Lawrence, he's number 1 overall pick. Great quarterback, right?
Absolutely.
I think Travis Etienne was a little bit more valuable than maybe they thought. Losing him hurts a lot. Because even when they came into Notre Dame Stadium, who did we key in on? We're like, I think that would have been the case even if Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback.
Sure.
Yeah. I think Clark Lee would have said, yo, we have to stop Travis Etienne. We can't let him get loose.
Right.
And then we'll play zone and worry about everybody else and make sure we keep everything in front of us and tackle. So when you don't have that guy, and like you said, Will Shipley's a good player, but he hasn't proven himself to be able to impact how defenses play them as an offense and open things up for everybody else. So it's going to have to come from that offensive line and that run game to open up everything else and to get DJ settled in a little bit more. Because right now he's unsettled, he's unsure. And like you said, he's learning. This is his first time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
As the starting quarterback. So there's a lot of things he's learning as well in these games. So he's going to have to look at the film and get better. He's going to have to become more of a leader, vocally, gain the respect, but it's going to come from that offensive line settling in and Will Shipley becoming to that offense what Travis Etienne had been the previous 4 years.
Sure, absolutely. All right, a couple more games to talk about before we have to roll out of here. First of all, let's see here. Cincinnati, Indiana. So let's talk about this one. Very tight game at halftime. It was 10-14. IU's ahead. Cincinnati rolls out 13 points in the third, 15 in the fourth, which was really the difference because IU scored 10 in the third, but 0 in the fourth. Yeah. So Cincinnati pulls away at the end. I think Indiana may have shown a couple of chinks in the armor for Cincinnati. But, man, the bottom line is Cincinnati is a really good team, and they know how to close the door on teams. And I think that was my biggest takeaway is, I forget who they played the week before, but it was close at halftime, and then they blew them out in the second half. Same situation here, close after 3 quarters. They blow them away in the fourth quarter. This team knows how to put teams away, and that makes me a little nervous for 2 weeks from now.
I love it. You know why I love it, Vince? You talk about the chink. If you're going to play us man-to-man for 60 minutes, please play us man-to-man. Because the speed we have, you can't cover us for 60 minutes. We're going to get opportunities in the passing game. So now in 2 weeks, like I said, can we become half a second better than we were against Purdue, against Wisconsin? And then when we get to Cincinnati, can we become a full second better in pass protection than we were against Purdue?
Sure.
If we can make that jump, the opportunities will be there. But this is the game we need Tyler Buchner, because I saw a lot of bootleg action, a lot of move in the pocket, and a lot of quarterback runs and not quarterback runs, but RPOs that opened up a lot of plays early in the game. Indiana really could have had a much bigger lead in the first half. I think they failed on a fourth down inside the 10 I know of, And I think they missed another one in Cincinnati, on the Cincinnati side of the field, where they had another opportunity to put up points after a turnover. So missed opportunities will always come back to bite you in the end when you face a really good team. Cincinnati did prove that they're a really good team to me. Really good team. A lot of offensive weapons. Ritter's going to have to beat me from the pocket. He's going to have to beat me.
Absolutely.
You're not that running around. You're not doing that against us.
Right.
You're not doing that. If I'm,
you got to contain him.
Yeah, we're taking that away. Now, if you can beat me from the pocket, I tip my cap and we go on to next week.
Right.
Indiana never did that. They allowed him to do whatever he wanted to, and once he got settled into the game, they eliminated the mistakes. They made a lot of mistakes on the offensive line with penalties early in that game as well. So I don't expect that type of effort, but I think Notre Dame's going to be better. And it's going to be a great game because Cincinnati knows how important that game is.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
That's a mid-season Super Bowl for Cincinnati.
No doubt. And they just beat a Big Ten team who everybody thought going into the season was going to be pretty good, right? And then they get back-to-back. They get that, and then they get Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium. I mean, look, if Cincinnati can beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium, they're because they're not going to have any problem with anybody else on their schedule.
No,
I mean, that's going to propel them almost directly into the playoff. Yeah, in my opinion. So
there's no way the run game for Cincinnati beats me if I'm Notre Dame.
Love it. Sorry, one more I want to talk about. We don't have a whole lot of time, but I do want to talk about it because I love to bang on Ohio State. Struggle with Tulsa, man. Like, you want to talk about a defense that is struggling right now. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, and we'll talk about the Auburn-Penn State game too real quick. But Ohio State, man, somebody needs to take advantage of the fact that their defense is terrible. Somebody has to, right?
Yeah. You don't want to see anyone lose their job, especially not in the middle of a season. But this goes back to having that guy, right? They were spoiled having Chase Young for 3 years.
Absolutely.
Spoiled. Like someone that every offensive coordinator had to look at and say, oh, my God, we're going to be spoiled, right? Because every offensive coordinator for the last 3 years has been looking, saying, where's number 14 at? Right? And next year, who's going to be that guy? We don't know, but we have to find out. And Ohio State is in their second season of trying to find out who's going to be the guy that's going to wreck offenses for us and open up opportunities for everybody else to make plays. And it doesn't seem like they can figure that out. They haven't found that guy. And that guy usually has to be in the front seven. And their front seven has been pushed around. Haskell Garrett, they thought would be that guy. Or Garrett Haskell, he hasn't been that guy. And the secondary for the second straight year, which I'm shocked because they recruit plenty of talent.
Oh, tons.
They have plenty of talent in the NFL in the secondary. So I don't understand. It can't be speed talent. It has to be scheme. Guys not fitting in, making the right fits. Guys not making the plays. Fundamentals not being done. The same thing we hear, right, with other teams, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of big plays. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, exactly.
It's across all of college football. A lot of coaches are dealing with transition years and trying to figure out, when they're going to get playmakers and who's that next playmaker for whatever unit on the offense or defense. And it seems like Ohio State is that they can score. But Ryan Day is going to be able to score. So that won't be the problem. But last time we talked, Vince, who did I tell you was going to be the problem for Ohio State?
Who was it?
It was Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I told you. I said they play defense as a cohesive unit. And I think we talked about it. I wrote about it when we gave our predictions for the game. I said Auburn's going to come in and try to bully ball. And they're going to realize we can't push this Penn State defense around. And there you have it. The Big Ten is going to come down to Ohio State, Penn State. That's, for me, Ohio State, Penn State, that's the winner of the Big Ten right there.
I like that. I think that's going to be a great game. I really do. October 30th. Yeah. So, put it on your calendars, folks. That's going to be a fun one. There's no question about it.
Where is it at, Vince? I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the schedule right
it's
now.
It's at Ohio State.
Oh, it's at Ohio State?
It's at the Horseshoe. Yeah, it's at the Horseshoe. So, but I still like Penn State. I do, because I think their offense is going to take it to that defense. I just not that Penn State's offense is unbelievable or anything, but I don't think they need to be. So
I love their wide receivers. We know Ohio State probably has the best 2 wide receivers in the Big Ten, but the 2 wide receivers at Penn State, they're pretty darn good.
Right.
And you got Kane in the backfield that can make plays. If Sean Clifford can just avoid mistakes,
a big one,
and take advantage of the opportunities that his skill position players are going to give him, you're right. Penn State should be able to handle them.
So let's wrap it up with Penn State, Auburn. That was a heck of a game to watch. I mean, it was back and forth the whole game. Penn State scores a touchdown in every quarter, and the difference was Auburn scored 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, and that's your 8-point difference right there.
Yeah.
Penn State, man, they came out to play. They used that wideout to their advantage. But I will say, I was impressed with Auburn. I was not necessarily anticipating Auburn to put up as much of a fight as they did. I thought the coaching staff had that team prepared. They were ready. That might have been the best game of the weekend, to be perfectly honest with you, when it was all said and done.
When you look at Auburn, typical SEC team, big, physical on the fronts, I expected that. I thought they would come in and try to bully Penn State, expect Penn State to be a Big Ten team they can push around.
Right.
And they threw the first punch, and when Penn State countered, kind of staggered them, Penn State took over the game and was able to hold on late in the game. But I was comfortable with picking Penn State in this game because I'm just not a fan of Bo Nix. I'm just not.
Sure.
Just not. And when they face good SEC teams, Bo Nix not being able to produce in the passing game is going to be the main issue. Like, Bigsby is a great back. He's going to be able to do damage. That Auburn offensive line is going to open holes for him, even in the SEC.
Right.
But I'm just not a fan of Nix. And he's going to hold that offense back the rest of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're going to have to be smash mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to have to be, because they got to overcome subpar to par quarterback play. Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, Vince, isn't it amazing? Like, the one thing, whether you watch Sunday Night Football or you go back to week 1 and it's Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs, it's so amazing how easy the game is when you have that guy at the most important position.
You're not wrong.
Right? Because every other team almost has to play a perfect game.
Right.
And there's no such thing as a perfect game in football. You're going to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And the other team is going to make plays against you. It's no against you. There's no perfect game. But when you have that guy, you can play a C game and still win, because he'll bring you back or he'll find a way to win the game. So,
sure. Yeah,
that is the quarterback position. I don't care what level you're at, is so vitally important.
No doubt. And we saw it. Well, we saw it last. If you want to talk NFL, we saw that last night from both quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
And it came down to a fumble and all, I had the Chiefs, man. That hurt me. But that was the 8th game of a 9-game parlay. I had them all right up to that point, man.
Is that the only one?
I had the Packers winning tonight, which I don't think was going too far out on a limb.
Well, they're playing the Lions, so
right. Yeah. I would have been 8-8 after last night, and then 9 out of 9 tonight. But that fumble at the end, I'm like, they're lining up for the field goal. God, man, you're gonna be kidding me.
At that point, I'm like, why are they giving the ball to him at this point anyway?
Right.
Like, just let Patrick throw the ball.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Or kick it on 2nd down. I don't care. Why are we fumbling the ball, man? Anyway.
Oh, man, I feel so bad for you.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
We're that close.
Yeah, I know. It always ends up being something. So, I mean, but I had the Cardinals winning, and there was a missed field goal.
They barely won against
They barely won. So it's like I got saved, and then I got tossed, within a matter of a few hours. So, it is what it is. But anyway, Shaun, thank you, man, for joining me today. Give a shout out about your podcast so everybody knows where to find you.
Absolutely. I co-host a podcast each and every week, Lucky Lefty Podcast with Malik Zaire. We're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We always have great content. Monday today, we'll be talking about Brian Kelly's press conference. Wednesday, we do our mix show where we preview the next game for Notre Dame. And then we start previewing the NFL week that's coming up.
Ooh.
And then Friday, I think this Wednesday, we'll have a special guest, former Notre Dame player, Ian Williams.
Nice.
Join us and talk a little NFL and college football. And then Fridays, we give you our keys to the game to get a victory. And that's it. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Lucky Lefty Podcast. You can follow the channel on YouTube. Subscribe. We appreciate you. And Lucky Lefty Podcast via the A2S network. It's also available on Apple Podcasts.
Nice.
You search A2S network. Lucky Lefty Podcast will pop up right there for you on Apple Podcasts as well. So we love you guys. You guys are the forerunners for us when it comes to great content. And we look up to you and Brian. And thank you all for the opportunity to be a part of Irish Breakdown and just kind of be brothers in this Notre Dame content game.
Absolutely, man. I love having you. It's always fun to mix it up and have you on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. And so that's going to do it for this edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the notification bell, hit that like, and then make sure you check out that Lucky Lefty Podcast because it's good stuff over there. I can attest to that as I have listened as well. So make sure you guys check that out. And we will talk to you guys next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.